Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Dragonborn Industries, where I'm going to be painting up Chris Redfield from the Steamforged Games Resident Evil the board game. We've done Barry already, we did him the other night, and we're now going to move forward and try and get some more of the characters done as we go, really. There's going to be a few changes on lighting and stuff like that as we go through it, so we're just trying out a few different things, and I'm just going to be doing a time lapse as well up above to make sure that we can capture a decent amount of this and try and get on some other socials, you know, because I think that would be quite a fun thing to do. But I said I was going to be back earlier. I wasn't, because I got busy, and now I can actually sit down, do a nice paint stream, and we can chill out and paint Chris Redfield. So, we've primed in black already, and we've got a good amount of detail on this mini. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a dry brush that's pretty clean, and I'm just gonna dust off to make sure that as he's been sat on my shelf waiting to get painted, we don't have any unwanted dust or any kind of stuff sitting under there. The bases are about 25 mil, so they do come out of here quite easily, but that's all right. We're going to grip it into the front bit up here. And again, I'm just going to dust it off and make sure that that's all sorted. Hopefully, there won't be too much dry brushing to do for this mini. It's all going to be relatively simple stuff. I might even put some blue tack on that, you know, just to be safe. That way, we can do what we need to do. So, let's grab some paint brushes. Let's grab our nerd goggles. And let's go with Chris. So I need to bring up a reference picture just so that I've got something to work with, which is going to be just there. That way I can see that as we progress forwards. Because we've got that white shirt, we've got that green tack vest, we've got dark brown hair, black gloves, black watch, medium grey trousers, and black knee pads, straps, and boots. So relatively, it should be quite easy to do this one. We're going to try the same thing again where we glazed a light direction. We're going to be doing this from the direction they're facing. So on Chris, it'll be obviously from the muzzle of his Beretta. And then we'll go from there, really. So, I'm just going to put some blue tack into my mini holder, just because they've got these 25mm bases, maybe even just a slight bit smaller, that they just like to pop out of the Citadel holders. So, I just want that to stay in there, because I don't want Chris to come up, especially when we get to doing the face. Which, to be honest, there is a potential that that's one of the things that we're going to attempt to get to first. So, if we grab some... Chris has got quite rosy skin there. So I'm going to start with the Catachan Flesh. This will be the base colour for the skin. Obviously, we've got the black primer on there. Put that there for the time lapse that we're hopefully going to do. But yeah, so sorry we didn't get back in the afternoon. A lot of things came up and we just had to deal with those, and that's absolutely fine. But we're back tonight. Let's keep the streams going. Let's grab some of that Catachan Flesh. Decant some of that into one of our palettes. Take a little bit of water. I'm going to water it down to a relatively thin milk-like consistency. And that's the consistency that we want, is milk, essentially. And then from there, we're going to make a start. I'm hoping I won't need to put on my goggles just yet, because I'm only doing a base layer at the moment. Hopefully within the next couple of hours, we'll have a mini fully painted. So let's grab anywhere there's skin on show. So we've got his arms, because he's in the... Well, hopefully, now you should be able to hear me. Thank you very much, Absalom. That is big help. Thank you very much. I do believe that was working before. I don't know why that dropped out, but that happened to me again the other night. So hopefully you can now hear me. Didn't miss too much, but we're painting Chris Redfield. We've got the Caliban green and that Necromancer cloak on for the trousers and the tack vest. We've now also got the white going on for those sleeves, but it's Corax white, which is quite grey. And once more, I'm going to try and leave a thin black line between the shirt sleeve and the tack vest so that I've got that separation, which is something that I like to do. What you might have to do with Corax white is you can see that starting to separate, which means that I may have to just go in there, give that another little mix, and then we can reload our brush with proper tone, and then we can go back in. And again, I'm pulling that paint from the base of the item to the top. That way that pigment travels up and is pulled up and is hopefully stronger where the light would be hitting. This will probably take a couple of layers because it is a white. And I have thinned it down quite a bit just because it is a base paint or a base layer paint, which are usually a bit thicker. And I think Citadel's thing is that they should be okay to kind of go on without priming, potentially. But I'm not a fan of that. So let's grab just in there. And there we go. So I put a little bit on that green. We don't want that. So I'm just going to take a clean brush and I'm just going to thin it out. Just wash that bit away and then soak up any excess water. So hopefully we don't make too much of a mess. I do need to get ever so slightly on the inside of that arm. It's just finding the right angle to come at it from. There we go. And once more, just need to... Hello, please start over. Is that because you've only just come in Dragon School, or because I had my sound drop out again? But we are only just beginning, really. So Chris, we've done Katachan Katachan flesh for the skin tone over a black primer. We've done Necromancer cloak from the Army Painter for the trousers. We've done Caliban green as a dry brush over the tack vest, and then we'll layer that up with more solid colours as we go. And then we're using Corax white on those sleeves as our base layer. But there's a little bit there that I've just gone over that I can see onto that Katachan flesh. But that's all it's been. It's only been a couple of minutes. I think it's been about 15 minutes of painting. And that's just me sorting my life out as well, really. Just trying to keep it going. Here we go. So let's carry on with a little bit of that sleeve there. I am still trying to leave a line of black primer between the sleeve and the tack vest, so I've got that separation. So are you back from work now, are you, Craig? We also have that knife. I'm probably going to paint the knife last. So the knife itself is right tucked in to his arm and shoulder just here. And it's upside down. It's one that he can grab and do a quick draw with from the games, but I'm not going to pull that out and do that until the end. Mini paint cam is unfocused when down on matte. Okay, hopefully that should be a bit better now. Yeah, hopefully it's on autofocus, Fluff. Thank you for letting me know, though, because we just had sound drop out as well again a minute ago, and I don't know why. It's all right. Thank you very much. So now let's grab... I'm going to repaint some of those holsters with black. What I might do is use a contrast black, because that could be quite fun. It's one of the only contrast paints I know how to use. So I'm going to grab some of that. Hope I don't knock it flying. Right. So we've got this holster on here, which is all down that side. And then we can apply it to the knee pads and stuff as well. I will probably try and pull that pigment upwards again as well, just so any heavier pigment is sat at the top or gets pulled into recesses properly. But actually, I think this mini is going to be relatively easy to paint. It's got a very nice, simple colour scheme, and the only thing we're really going to have to work on to make pop is that tack vest and the sleeves. So actually, I don't think this is going to take me too long at all. He has got black pockets on his left leg. I'm going to tack those ones there with the contrast as well. They're like webbing pouches that would hold magazines or a clip for his Beretta 9mm. Which I do like what they did with a lot of the minis was have them with their standard weapons that they begin with. So Chris, Jill, Rebecca all have Berettas. Barry has the Magnum. Wesker has a Beretta. And then they have alternate minis where they have the shotgun, the grenade launcher, the forest sprayer with grenade launcher zombie, which is just really cool. And yeah, I really like that they gave us some additional options there. So I'm also going to grab some, and I'm probably going to put it onto those knee pads as well, just to really highlight that black and hopefully accent it. Got these lovely straps going across the back of the leg. But they tuck in behind the knee joint sometimes. I just want to make sure that I get those properly without being too cack-handed. So, I might go over the boots again, but they're already quite a strong black. We've got a lovely buckle on the front of that one there for his Beretta holster. And then we've got that belt as well. He's got a black belt just underneath his tack vest. And I do like when colours are lighter underneath and then you've got darker highlights like straps on top. I like that a lot. That's a different dynamic to a mini. And I keep mentioning dynamics. And depending on what you do, depends on what that means. But to have like different views to look at. So movement is one of them. I like doing my sort of highlighting for cartoon because it shows up the dynamic movement. But also if you have different colours, you get different dynamics for what people are drawn to. So it's quite a varied use of the term that I'm using. So, just looking over what we have, I may apply some of that black again to the gloves, just to really sharpen them up, have them popping off a little bit more. And because we've got those brown fingers at the moment against one of the backs of the other glove, I want to make sure that that is a nice background for those fingers as we layer them up. So I'm just going to click a button over here. There it is. Right. I'm going to close that before I knock it over because I am a sucker for knocking over washers and this, that, and the other. And that's where we're at so far. So base layers, I believe, are on and done. I will now go in and attempt the eyes. So we've got the green, the greys, the whites, the blacks. It's actually not much to it. Actually, a relatively simple mini to do, and I'm quite excited about that. So I'm going to fold that over so I've got a nice fresh bit just there. I'm going to grab my nerd goggles. Take my hat off because I can't wear both at the same time. And then I need my max magnification to enhance. And then we can, whoop, hey, that's that one there. I'm going to grab my nice thin artist brush, which is, you know, if this is the Artificer from Citadel next to it, that's the difference in point size. This one being the Artificer. But this one here is a Pro Art one, which I got from a hobby store for like £3-4 because a friend of mine got me one of those and she does fine art. And I really like them and they're very good for eyes. So I'm going to grab, this time round, let's have a look under the light how pronounced his eyes are. So, he's almost squinting. Almost. Which I think means I'm going to use some of that Corax white because it's thickened up ever so slightly. We are going to a very small amount on that brush and bring it up the palette. This is about the amount that we want. You can barely see it. And then I'm going to come in, trying to stabilize my hands. And even that's too much, so I'll get my wet tissue, take some of that off. I'm going to try and do a tiny little line inside that squinted eye. There's one. Wash the brush off. We're going to go again. Again, wait. So this is so much paint that you're going to end up with like a big splodge. It's even hard to show you that. I wonder if I can do it against black. See how it's bald on the end there? That would be fine if I was trying to go for like a large eye or a pupil, but it's too much. So I've got a spot of wet tissue here. I'm just going to touch the tip to that and draw it back. And what you should get is an amount of paint coming off that will just leave a very fine tip. And then once more, I'm going to come in from the side and I'm going to attempt to, with stable hands, put a little line inside that squinted eye. Which was a bit too much. That's okay. Because what we can do now is work on the other side just to make sure that's nice and even. And that we've got the full eyeball, and then I'll come in and show you how to tidy up if you go wrong. So, I'll show you one wrong eye, one right eye. Hopefully this will show. The one is now bigger than the other. So the one closest to my thumb over here is perfect. Whereas the one here is just a little too thick. But what we can do is grab our Catachan flesh, which is still sat over here. We're going to use that same thin brush once we make sure that's all mixed together. And we're almost going to paint eyeliner in. So underneath the eye to begin with. And we're just grabbing that cheekbone. Just knocking it back. And what that should do is put in place the correct eyes, or the size for the eyes, for you to then work on pupils. And there we go. So there's two tiny little white dots. We're going to put pupils into those shortly. I'm just going to want that to dry for a moment. And at the same time, I'm going to thin down some more of that Corax white, and I'm going to do a second layer on those sleeves while we're waiting for the eyes to dry. And because it's such a small amount of paint in those eyes, it really won't take that long. But I want a nice thin but smooth layer on these sleeves. I want it to be a thick cotton. we're going to just make sure we've got a nice amount on that brush again and come in on the other one. Just pulling that pigment again up from the base to the top of the sleeve. I am going over the stars badge right now, but that's fine because I want white inside the stars, and then I can paint the black on later like we did with Barry. So that is now dry. I'm just going to go in and just make sure that that is a solid colour without my mini falling off. The reason I'm doing that is just because some of that brown went slightly a bit further onto that eye, so it's easier to tidy it up now. Before we go in and do those skin tones. Okay. Grab. All mics are still on. I'm now paranoid about my microphones. A little bit over on this eye. That's just underneath the bridge, the eyebrow. Again, we can just knock that back with a little bit of that Katachan flesh. It's just a case of working on shaping them, really. For this particular one, I'm going to use the same Katachan flesh for the pupils. I'm going to change my brush, and I'm actually going to go back to the Artificer. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to come in at the top of the eyes, and I'm going to have his eyes, the pupils are attached to the top of the eyeball rather than the bottom. That way I get a more directional approach. And whereas Barry's, the way he was looking with that gun down there was very central, Chris is almost looking down the iron sight of his Beretta, which means that he would be almost at the top of those eyes, or the eye where we need to paint. Which means that I can do something even easier for the eyes, which I always like it when it works out easier. I'm going to grab a slightly thicker amount of paint, and at this point here, I'm going to come in on one of the eyes. I'm going to do it from the top, and it's the same colour as the base layer, so it means that should not need to be blended afterwards. There's one. So I'll show you how one looks before I go in and spend the next 3 hours trying to fix the second one when I mess it up. So, I don't know if you're going to see that. Oh, it's very thin. Very thin, very small. Come on, focus. I think potentially you might not see that. No. Too small for the camera, I'm afraid. So, let's continue with the other eye. And I'll get a decent picture of that later. But it's quite a big pupil. It takes up most of the eye. But this is what I did for my Iden Versio, and it really, really worked. So, we're going to grab some of that thicker paint. I've got a nice point on the brush. Making sure it's not balling at the end, but it's just a nice tip. That was starting to fray, so we're going to go again. If I need to knock it back, I knock it back. And if it's too watery, we start again. Oh my! He's on again. I am! We're doing another little push on here. Trying to get more streaming done. I need to get more paintwork done. So, hey, Jack. How are you? Also, it's Tuesday. Why are you not on? Been busy? We are currently painting up Chris Redfield from Steamforged Games, Resident Evil, and now we're working on eye number 2. So this is where, again, I try and stay boz-eyed, and I'm coming in from the top with that same colour, so it's brown for the pupil. Just do thickening that one up a little bit. Reasons, my guy. Explain another time. No worries. Hope that you're all good, my friend. Hope that you're all good. I'm excited about tomorrow. We get to hang out and talk Starfinder, hopefully still. If not, text me. It's still go in ever so slightly. So I'm just trying to, I'm essentially poking into the eye, just so that the very tip is touching the white of the eyeball. And that way I'm not doing a brush stroke, but it requires precision. Just to make sure we get a rounded and symmetrical set of eyes. And if you go too far, like I did just then, one of the joys of that is, or of having the white and the brown and the pupil in first, you can fix it now. So I'm going to take a very thin amount of white and just put a white line back in at the base of that eye, just to separate the bottom of the eye from the pupil. Eye 1 is always easier than eye 2. I'm actually going to have to wash some of that out. I went too far with that white then. And we just take some plain water, soak the eye, use the brush, clean it off, go again. And then you can dry the eye off with a separate brush that is already dry, not touched water at all, just to soak up any of that. That'll save you some time. And we're going to go again. We're going to try and get that white in there. So, coming back in underneath. It's hard because the paint, when it's this minute, dries up so fast. And sometimes trying to get there before the paint dries is a pain. Okay, so that's that bit there. Like I say, the first eye is always easier, and then you just got to try and match the second one as best you can. But if you get it right with this technique by having them at the top of the eyeballs, it really does make a difference. And people do tend to notice. what I'm doing now is I'm once more cleaning it up again because I wasn't quite happy with the placement. And like I said, I want this to be as close to symmetrical as I can physically get, and I know I can get physically better and closer than that. If it means that I have to take the eye out and start again, then I will. I shouldn't need to. Okay. Let that dry again for a bit. And at the same time, we can now look at other areas on the Mini. So, we need to tidy up some of the trousers and the pockets there, just because we didn't catch some of that grey with the black when we were trying to do those pouches and the straps. So now with some magnification, we're going to go back in with our artificer brush. We're just going to catch those now. Just make them a bit more striking, make sure there's no mess. Trying to keep it nice and simple. There's a few areas like the inside of the leg, those straps, I just missed a little bit there as well. Now with some high pigment contrast, we can go in and get those. There we go. The music reminds me of Tangerine Dream. Yeah, so this is my Dystopian City playlist. It's probably one of the biggest playlists I've got, but it also fits that kind of Resident Evil vibe slightly with that dystopianness, so that's why we went with this one for now, just to fit the theme, really. Okay, so let's grab and go in on that eye again, because that should be dry. This is where I'm going to spend most of my time, is just trying to get them perfect, because I want them to be a thing that players pick up on, a thing that I can be proud of, and I know that I can do better, so that's what we're doing. I certainly think for these minis, I want it to be as best as I can get them. There we go. Nailed it. I really hope you could see these. That's so close. I really want to get a decent DSLR camera that can really focus in, but we've now got, you're not going to see it on there. Oh, maybe just these two pupils that sit. They would be looking up as his head is sort of pointed forwards with the Beretta iron sight as he's aiming. So instead of it being in the center like Barry's were, as he looks up with his head back, he's down like that, and his pupils and the irises are up at the top. Oh, awesome! You can see them. Even better, they look a bit grainy and... Oh, can you zoom in on the iPad screen, Fluffy? That's amazing. Awesome. So that's what we're after. The reason we've done those eyes now is so that I don't have to do that and keep messing around when we're doing the next layers of skin. And if you do 3 layers of skin and then you do the eyes, you've got to layer them up again and again and again. And through trial and error, that's how I found this technique of doing eyes. So that's my top tip. If you're painting eyes, do the base layer of skin, then do the eyes. Because then you can hide all of your shaky hand fumbles and all of your dyspraxia, in my case, and horrible, horrible shakes. So that's awesome that you can zoom in on the iPad. I haven't tried on a phone, Fluffy, so I will have to have a look at that when... I'll go back and watch this on my phone, and then I'll try and zoom in on that area there. Drinking from my periodic table of elements mug. Got some hot juice. Woo! I know how to live on the edge. Right. Now, I'm going to start with the trousers this time. And I'm going to go from the bottom and work my way up for highlighting. I'm going to take some Orc Grey. This is the Army Painter Orc Grey. Let's do that there for the time lapse. I keep forgetting how to say the word time lapse or what it even is. And we are going to go in and we're going to try and do our standard cartoon highlights for the trousers. So for me, this is a way of painting that I find very simple and very effective without needing to use a wash. I use very thin but lined paint to paint top edges of clothing folds or anywhere that light would catch, rather than dry brushing, which you absolutely can do, and some people make it look amazing, but I prefer this because I think it stands out a little better and is a little more cartoony, which I quite like. So, I mean, that's quite excessive. That's probably a bit too much paint on there, just to show you that you really don't need to load up that much. I think that's too much. So again, we've got a wet bit of tissue here. Just going to pull some of that back. I'm going to find those top edges of a lot of those fold lines that are on these trousers for Redfield here. Hopefully, with these being lighter and then those straps and everything being black, it should give it a really nice field of depth. Some hard bits to get to between the knee pads. It's okay. I really like this directional stuff they've got going on here as well with the bottom of the trousers. They have what almost looks like trouser ties for Chris, who's ex-military, underneath those trousers that they're tucked into. So it gives it that roll at the bottom and you get a lot of direction on there. And once more, my favourite word, dynamics, is going to come out. I've got to remember to paint where you guys can see. Where's... there. So. And again, I'm pulling those lines from the base to the top of the areas I want to highlight. Could also be because I'm still zoomed in, actually. Oh, look at that! Let's go one back in. There we go. We have the technology. And again, we're just following those lines up on these trousers on the other leg. The paint is starting to thicken up because it's quite warm in here, so I may water that down again in a second. We don't need to grab too much of these trousers. We've actually got really nice areas to grab, and then just really simple movement lines and stretch marks. So it really shouldn't take too long to highlight these up. And one of the joys of these particular styles is if you think that you've gone too far with the highlights, you can either feather them down or you can completely go in there with something like a black contrast or a shader and just paint back in a darker tone to anywhere between those lines. Almost like a wash, but without going all over. bit more controlled. Grab some more water. I'm just going to thin that down again, just because it is thickening up. Knock some of that back. There we go. So, this bit on the inside of the leg. What's nice about those curled under trousers, they give a nice little bloom that catches the light. So you can highlight down at the bottom of a mini, and it should make a decent difference to how it looks. There we go. So the trousers should look like this. Obviously, when that dries, it will lighten down. Lighten down? Darken up. But those single line, I guess, pleats and folds, that's what we're after. Then I'm going to layer up the tack vest, or begin to now, I think. That way, I don't have to worry about the skin tones or working on getting green on the skin tones. There's a slight size difference on the right eye again, so it's going to come in underneath. Just finish shaping that. There we go. Right! Onwards we go. I'm going to check that that's still going on the old time lapse. We're all good there. So I'm just going to show it off to the time lapse. Because there's nothing like watching me hold a mini to a camera. Right. So let's go in and start layering up the green. So I need to pick a colour now. I'm going to enhance Chris over here. Whoop. So we've got quite a strong green, and then we've got highlights of the sort of like an olive drab green there, depending on where the light's been hitting. So let's go with a few different things. Right. Because this is my... Nope, that's scaly hide. We don't want that one. But what we do want... Second scaly hide. Where are you? Army green. I think this might be the final highlight, this olive drab. But that'll give us quite a matte look rather than vibrant. If I was going super vibrant, I would probably layer up through Elven or Goblin green and then go for a moot green. Let's just get them out together and have a look. Because it might be a case that we do one or the other. And then I'd go to moot green, sorry, and then I would highlight with a yellow. But that's for like really bright things. And I don't necessarily want something that bright. I mean, I know there are a few lighted highlights, so maybe that could work. But I'm going to keep that to one side for now. We're looking at the tricolours again. So we're starting with Caliban. It's quite a stretch to get to there, and then it's quite a tonal difference to there. So that would be quite... It'd be cool and cartoony, but it's quite a difference. So I think we're going to have a look at what we've got and work our way up from that Caliban green. Or I'm going to have to add some white to the Caliban green and go from there. That is a turquoise, that can go away. Elven green is the same as the green skin. That's also the same, that's also a turquoise. We do have this Vallejo. That's slightly darker, ever so slightly darker. So it could be that one there. That's the best one we got so far. How does it go with? Yeah, it's sort of along the same colour spectrum of green tonality, I guess. Goblin green. Was it orbs? Elven green. I think what we're going to find is some mixing might need to be done. But let's have a look at what we've got. So this is Goblin green, that is the Vallejo. I'm going to give that one a shake so we can see the difference. I need to get one of those paint mixers. So, put some of that out here. Oof. Been a while since I've used that. Let's grab some cocktail sticks. One in there. Let's put this on there like so. That one is Goblin green. That one is our olive drab. Let's grab oh yeah, 100% there, the two. Yep, cool. So we've got Vallejo, number 83. Verd olive. So that's going to be close to that. And then we've got that olive green. There you go, colour matching without needing to mix. That's how I do it. Just look at the bottom of the pot. So we've got the Caliban on there. Let's look at this Verd green. And then I might add some moots, maybe. The other thing I could do as well is I could use this as my final, the Army Painted Green as my final third, but I could also then re-add in something like yellow or the moot green to try and brighten it back up and to add some final highlights. But we'll see. We don't necessarily need to do that just yet. We will need a fresh palette. I'm probably not going to need all that much, realistically. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our pure tone water. We're going to add that to there. We're going to thin that down. Again, we're looking for milk. Green tasty milk. And then we can take our artificer brush, stick our dental goggles back on. Pull back some of that. And we're going to find those areas that we want the light. So, got a few sections of the back. Just going to dab some of that on just to work out where I want the colour. The collar of that tack vest. Even going underneath that chin there. The outer bits of the flak vest. We want that line there. These back plates. When I say back plates, it's more just where you can see the muscles and the clothes pulling. We're doing the same thing we did for the trousers, but we're going a bit more in depth with this. And it's very thin. We are almost glazing, and then we'll be blending and feathering as well. So which means I take a wet brush, and I just take away some of that paint, wet it down, push the pigment back up towards the top. If it gets too wet, too much, you can come in and either take the whole lot out or you can thin it down. It's hard to go wrong with it, really, and you sort of get an eye for it the more you try it. So that bit there I'm just going to erase by adding water and then just slowly soaking it back up because I went too far. Same again just in there. I'm just going to soak some of that up after thinning it down. so that we leave that dark green and black inside that collar line. I'm going to come back in on the shoulder. This entire outside shoulder where he's supporting his other hand, that is very, very much where my light source is going to be coming from. So I'm going to make sure there's a nice, decent, thick layer of this Vallejo green on those bits. Same with the areas where it could be seen from that side. And especially across those front edges where we want that light source to be coming from. Some really, really strong pockets on this one, like actually really well detailed and raised, so it's very easy to get to those. There are a few areas hidden behind that knife that are going to be hard to get to. I think we're going to be all right. Following those lovely straps and stuff that they've got going around. You do want to avoid that one that goes down to the holster, because that is obviously the black one that attaches to his leg for his weapon. But you can see the second layers of that green going on. I'm just going to keep it nice and thin. Just keep it a slow progression. We really want that lighting effect to make the difference. I will do the same thing for his tack vest that I did for Barry's by giving it a different colour across that back stripe, or the back line, so that we just have something different to look at. And it adds, again, more dynamics to the Mini. I'm tempted to actually paint that knife strap completely leather, as if it was added on afterwards, but I don't know yet. And we might dive into the photo and have another look. Just to see what that's like. Whole bottom rim is very lit up, so we can get that quite strong. Underside of that just there. So it's a bit on the chest that's going to be really, really hard to get to, but I do want to get some of this green on there because it's really well detailed. I just think that that's some of that light is coming in the right direction to grab some of that. A little bit between where I want it there, so I'm going to try and soak it up with the brush. Then we've got, again, a nice thick bit at the bottom of this jacket, just down here, that we can grab and thin out where we need to, and just replace with a nice strong tone where we need to. So hopefully, just start to see the green starting to really show through now. And I've gone heavier on this side because that's where I want my light source to be, coming from the direction he's shooting. So, with that in mind, I'm actually going to move on to the next green already. We're going to take our army green. What I might do is grab some of that previous green and just mix a little bit into one side and see what we get. I think we could end up with a really nice tone that might sit a bit more nicely on top of the green that we've already done. Yeah, so we've got the green that we did for our mid layer. Then we can see over here is the army green on this side of the palette, and then over on this side is where we've mixed it. And we've got somewhere in the middle with that. So I think that's where we're going to stick. I'm going to water it down ever so slightly. Don't need to do too much because the previous green was watered down. And then we're going to put in those highlights. And the same thing we did with Barry, we're going to put those corners that are facing the light in with a feathered layer. Just so we've got that light coming in from one side. Being very specific here as well to pick up the most heightened detail on the mini and to drop my brush. Whoop! Almost in the paint. Clumsy hands tonight. Okay, so. Again, we're just finding those very, very top edges, those certain bits, just to give some extra life to. Oh, went into one of the recesses there. I'm going to come in, I'm going to soak that up, and I'm going to dry it off so that it doesn't run anymore. I'll leave that bit alone for a minute, and we will attack somewhere else. And again, we should start to see directional colours of those greens coming in from the direction that his Beretta is facing. Pretty happy with that so far. What I'm going to do, just make sure we've got everywhere with the bits that we wanted. Make sure there's no bits hiding underneath any arms. Anywhere that's meant to have been got that hasn't been got. And then I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and mix in some moot green to that colour to bring the saturation back up, just to see. Just have a little look at what we get. And see if maybe that can be our top highlight, or if it's going to be too far out of sync. I think it could work. I think it could be quite fun, actually. So this is the vibrancy that we've got to. Obviously, this is the original moot green. So we've definitely got tones of that in there. Whether we've gone too far, I don't know. Might add a little bit more of the army green in there. and then we will see what happens. We know the recipe if we need to make it up again. I think that's maybe a bit too much. Just add a tiny bit more of the moot. I think we're there. So. Yeah. The moot is now... It looks very bright on that camera, but it's really not. Knock some of that back. Find some really high apexes. And it's really only going to be from the direction that light source is coming from. I'm not going to go too crazy. Shoulder's probably going to take the most of it. And that neck collar. So, one more area, just because it's a very big patch of green. If we do anything to make it just a little bit more directional, then we will do. There you go. What we have is, again, once it dries, that will show off a little bit better. But we've got that light coming in, just like Barry's, from the direction of aim. Which means now we can work on the final bits, which is the skin tones. And then the black highlights for the gun, the gloves, potentially the hair, but we might not even need to. I think I am going to add something here. I'm going to grab my favourite brown, my oak brown, and I'm going to add that strap that we see for Chris on his knife. I know that it's black, but I'm going to make it brown. That way, I think it will just add a different colour to the Mini. And I think, again, dynamics, that's the word of the day. That's what I'm after. So, let's go with finding the oak brown first. Because I am totally organised, but sometimes when I finish a paint stream, I just push them back into the box. I don't need much. I'm going to grab our artificer brush. Dry that off, make sure it's got a decent point. I'm going to thin it down ever so slightly. I don't need to thin it down as much. And then we are going to paint the knife and this strap. I'm pulling that pigment up the strap towards the shoulder, because again, that's where our light source is. And that's where I want that pigment to be the thickest. Luckily, the brown goes over green quite well. And we'd left that whole area quite dark anyway, knowing that we were going to do this. So... we've got that bit there. Let's grab our black for that back stripe across the shoulder blades. We said we were going to paint a different colour earlier. So we've got, again, those nice black highlights. Those darkened ones standing out against the colour, which seems to be Chris's aesthetic, is these darkened pads and straps. And then we're adding brown to the knife one because I really want to give it a different look and have that popping off the Mini. Then we will skin tones or the white shoulder blades. Let's finish off those white shoulder blades. I'm going to work on the skin tones last, I think. So we're going to grab our Vallejo airbrush white. Because it's nice and thin. It makes a good layer. So I'm going to put that in there. Just need a drop, don't need much. I'm just going to paint over what we've done so far. It's a nice thin layer. And hopefully this will sink into certain places. Really pigment up. And then we can do final highlights with white scar or with another layer of this. But white is a very hard colour to paint. So you have to do it slowly and in very thin layers. Which is why I really like that airbrush white. So, they should be nice and vibrant now. Ready for us to grab some skin tones. Let's grab our standard Kislev and Katachan flesh tones. So you've got Cadian, which is our mid layer. And then we will grab... he's quite rosy skinned, really. So actually, I wonder, maybe actually, if we grab tanned flesh and then, yeah, it's a slightly different hue. I think we're going to go with the Army Painter, tanned flesh and barbarian flesh. So they're a slightly rosier colour. Bold titanium white from Momentum Hobbies will change your life. I will get on that. I can't type it into my phone right now, but I'll type that into Google over here. Titanium white. Monument Hobbies. Awesome. I will leave that one open and I will get that checked off and give that a go. There was a chrome that somebody did that was amazing, and I really want to get hold of that because it's really reflective, but I don't know how that'll work with my style of painting. So let's grab a different palette because that one's quite messy. Ooh, a lovely clean one. Treat myself. Treat myself. Right. So the tanned flesh. Again, it's quite strong. And I really like that. You've got this almost rosy / sunburn-esqueness to it when it first goes on. And one of two ways that I use it is I either use that and then layer it with barbarian flesh. Or I go in with this one and then I just add a little bit of white or a little bit of pink or a little bit of blue, whatever I need. And it is tiny amounts that I add to it to try and change it. But it works very well as those mid-tones, especially on Caucasian flesh like Chris here. So, let's grab Artificer once again. It's a nice thin paint. I'm pretty well loaded up. And we're doing that same thing that we did yesterday. We're finding those higher points, all those muscles, all the tendons, anything that's sticking up or out. I'm going to try and either paint very thinly into the gaps or leave the gaps the original base layer of that Catachan flesh. We want more pigment on the top of the arm than we do the bottom. So if you can paint up towards the top, again, that's going to help you out loads with strength of colour and then blending the underside later on. Wait, Resident Evil has a board game? Ho ho! Welcome back, Bennett from Genshin. Yeah, so Steamforged Games, who do Epic Encounters and a load of D&D stuff and loads of other board games like Horizon, and they do Dungeons and Doggies, Kittens and Caverns, I think it was. Catacombs and Kitties and Catacombs. They brought out Resident Evil 3 and 2 a few years ago. And then there was a Kickstarter about 2 years ago for Resident Evil 1, which was one of my favourite games growing up. So the other day we painted up Barry. We're working on Chris right now. Yeah, I just wanted to paint, like getting Star Wars minis for Legion, I just wanted to paint Resident Evil minis. And on Instagram earlier, we put it out to you guys to suggest who we do next. Because we did Barry the other day, and then we did... Well, we had a choice of Chris, Jill, and Rebecca Chambers. And I'll always say it, Rebecca is my favourite character from Bravo Team. But yeah, I did the full-on back for it. My wife got it me for my birthday. I'm very, very grateful. And now I get to sit around and stream painting some Resident Evil minis, which is awesome. And I'm very, very, very happy with that. So have you played much Resident Evil? Is it a game franchise that you like then? I know a lot of people here in chat have. So I'm just, again, trying to pull the pigment up towards the top rather than down towards the bottom. And I'm leaving any of those darker dimples, recesses, or anything like that to that original Catachan flesh colour. And then we're using the Army Painter tanned flesh to pull up and begin our journey. Oh, I missed Jill's sandwich guy. I'm going to check it out on YouTube later. So I love Jill. Jill is amazing. And when I was younger, I was very, very young when I first played the games. And I always used to play as Jill because she had 2 extra inventory slots. And that for me was like, you can carry more stuff, which means you're going to be better. Didn't realise that Chris had the vitality to survive getting attacked again and again and again. So, and I didn't realise until like my second playthrough that you don't get Rebecca really unless you play as Chris. So for me, it was, you know, that was the cool thing, that him and Rebecca were off doing one thing and Jill and Barry were kind of doing the other. And yeah, so the main 4 characters for the game that you play are Jill, Chris, Rebecca, and Barry. However, there is an advanced mode, which we got with the Kickstarter, where you can play as the entirety of Alpha Team and the entirety of Bravo Team, which is really, really super cool. So you do get things like Wesker and Forrest and all of them. And I really like Brad, Chicken Heart, the pilot. I always liked him. I liked that he had a yellow tactical vest. Not that you ever see him in the game, but you see him in the game manual. And I was always like, oh, I really like him. Yeah, it's badass. I love Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 was my first one. Still scared of people with smiles that show too much gum to this day. Yeah, stars. Nemesis was very, very cool. I remember I played 1. I was such a child of no change as a kid that when Resident Evil 2 came out, I was like, oh, it's not the same as the first one. And I just didn't play it, but my friends did, and I really regret that because Leon's ace, that whole game is ace, and, you know, I shunned it for no reason apart from just trying to be a moody teen, or young teen. And then I got over myself when Resident Evil 3 came out, because Jill was back in it, and, again, playing as Jill through the city was super cool. And, actually, yeah, I went back and I absolutely loved Resident Evil 2, but Resident Evil 3 was really awesome, especially when, like, the Nemesis is just, like, walking down the alleyway, and you've got to get away, and it's just like, stars. Yeah. Very, very cool. Awesome, awesome games. 4 was great. I really enjoyed 4, and the concept of them weaponizing now the T-virus and turning it into the plague and into everything else that was different, and then creating something new, because obviously Umbrella, and playing again as Leon was really cool. In a different environment, and then coming through 5 was incredible, that you get to play as Chris again. Yeah. Remember that Nemesis jumps into the police station with a goddamn bazooka. Yeah, kid me through the controller up at that. Only game that gave me a scare that big was Silent Hill with the school locker. Yep. 4 is the best one in my own. It hits all the spots just right. Nice. So I really like 1 because it's the classic, and I do like the classic. I really like 0 because it's Rebecca and Bravo Team, and I'm a big fan of Bravo Team. I really liked 5, actually, and I loved its co-op. But as for scary, the jump factor in 4 is fantastic. And oh boy, does it make me jump. The jump factor in 5 is okay. 6 is crazy. I haven't played 7. What I have done is gone back and started the remasters again. I remember the first time you see the Lictor as well in number 2. That was like, oh god. Haven't played 0 yet. 5 is awesome. Played it with my wife. Great action game. 6 is bonkers. Yeah, so I think that 5, because you've got that co-op, I really like that. It was like the first time that they'd properly done it. You get to play as Claire and... Not Claire. You get to play as Chris and as... Was it Claire? I don't think it was Claire. Oh, I'm forgetting. But 0 is really cool. You can get it on PlayStation. It came as a bundle with the original one. And it's got that classic 90s game vibe to it that they've remastered. And then you play as Rebecca, and then you see Bravo Team. You go in with Bravo Team, you end up in a different place to them, and you end up coming into the mansion from somewhere else, which is really awesome. And you like get to meet them before they're dead. And it's really, really cool. I think I'm going to download 0 to play in between Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous runs. Nice! I've got them on Steam. Awesome. Very, very awesome. Yeah, I just really, really like them. So when they bought the game and did the Kickstarter, I actually didn't do 2 and 3 because at the time I was a bit broke and I was like, I'll be fine. I'll get it when it comes out to retail. And I did regret that because I'd seen loads of other people play it and painting really awesome minis, especially 3 and Leon for 2. And then, yeah, this one came around in and around the same time as my birthday. And my wife was like, hey, do you want me to get you the all-in backer pledge for your birthday present? And I was like, hell yeah. And yeah, that turned up the other week. So we did an unboxing, which was awesome because for once I was on one of the first waves. And then we are getting it ready to hopefully play some games soon. Hopefully we might stream some of them when we've learnt to play. I'm all about taking down Umbrella, and I'm all about playing some Resident Evil. As for painting, I'm now very thinly applying it to the face. So again, we want to leave those darkened areas around the eyes. This is crucial to the eye painting that we did earlier, because it leaves us almost as if we've intentionally painted a dark circle around those eyes, which then makes them pop out of the mini more. We don't need to worry too much about anything else. We want to get those cheekbones and the nose, but again, we want to leave not just the dark rings around the eyes like a raccoon. It's much more finer in. It's like eyeliner all over. You also want to leave the lines down the side of the nose. They also want to be left that base brown colour. Obviously, with the eyes as well, we want to be on those cheekbones. We want it to be directional. We want it to curve round so that we hug the details. Take it slow. Less is more. We're going to grab the top of the nose there with the side of the brush. So his mould line is right on that ear. So I'm going to try and be careful not to smudge anything or go too far. I'm going to come down the cheeks, following the jawline. I'm not too bothered about getting into the neck because you can barely see it. This is where I need to be really careful getting to that top lip and the chin because it's tucked in to that tack vest. So trying to catch it where I can. And then work my way in slowly from there. We don't want to leave big dark patches in areas that we can get to if we can. If you need to thicken up areas like the cheekbones, and that's absolutely fine too. If you go too thick, you can always thin it back down. Need to get a bit further in on that chin. So some of that got a bit too watery and has gone down towards the gap between the neck and the flak vest. I'm just going to soak that back up. And I'll fix it again in a minute. Now we're just going to add a few extra thicker areas to where the light would be. Especially on that direction that we've got with the light source on the vest and on trousers. So we're almost there. I'm getting the mid-levels of the face done. Just being extra careful to push it in. And what you should get is hopefully, with the mid layers, almost a sugar skull effect. So, I'll try and show you in a second. There we go. So, the second layer of skin tone wants to look like this. We've left it dark around the eyes. We've left some darker recesses between the muscles. And again, whoop, on that arm there. Those eyes, we've left them very dark. We have not painted into those recesses once we did the eyes. We just tidied up with the base colour, and then we went around and we're doing all of the rest of the skin tones with that mid-tone. All I have to do now is grab a Barbarian Flesh, which is a slightly lighter skin tone, which goes really well against that tanned flesh that we did originally. And that will be our highlight. Oh, wow, that's looking really good, by the way. Thank you so much, Bennett from Genshin. Eyes are something that I had to find my own technique on because I've got very shaky hands. And yeah, I realised that if you do the base layers of skin in a brown and then paint in the eyes then, you can then tidy up with that base layer and then layer the skins up afterwards. And if you leave darker areas around the eyes, around the nose, it really makes those details pop up. Same with the insides of the ears. And you can end up with a very, very simple way of painting eyes that look good. And also, not going to spend ages on that. So let's grab the other thing as well is actually if you leave those dark bits around the eyes, if you get it just right here, it looks like the eyebrows as well. And you then don't have to paint on really thick, bushy eyebrows. So, this is tanned flesh. You can see it's got some red tone in there, where we need to just mix it up a little bit more. And that's fine. We are going to heavily water this. So, hopefully you should see the difference in a minute. Again, it's quite rosy, so it goes with that other one quite well. With the Barbarian Flesh goes with the tan flesh quite well. So I'm going to water that one down and mix it so you can see the two next to each other. So, this was our mid-tone, just here. And this is our highlight tone. I have made sure I've watered that down to quite an extreme. I'm going to take a rather heavy amount at this point for the arms. So, on the Artificer brush, this is the blob that we want. Directions. There we go. And I'm going to attach this to those higher points again. Specifically looking at the light coming in from above and the direction of the lighting when it comes to the face. I'm going to pull that up and down depending on where I need the light to fit. And it is a very thin amount that I dab onto the top and then pull down to blend into the other muscles and the other bits that we've done. Now the rest of the skin tones I have been always pulling up towards the top. This time around, I'm pulling them from the top down and then replacing the bits at the top to be a bit stronger again. That way we get a nice feathered layer pulling down into the darker tones and the shadings underneath. Like so. Let's grab that on. See if we can get that to show off a bit better. Should be nice and dark underneath, and then we're going to end up with a really light rosy tone at the top. We want to really be hitting those areas that the light catches. So, for example, with his left arm, which is supporting the Beretta, there is quite a bit that's in the direction of the light that we've chosen. So that's going to be a brighter section of this arm. And again, the inside of the right forearm is in direct light. So we're going to make that really bright as well. I'm actually going to do an extra layer of skin for Chris, where I'm going to add a little bit of white to this particular colour and just get it to really highlight certain areas. I need to wash off my brush, and I need to come in with a new area. I don't really need to get the inside of that arm because that one is away from the light. I will get this line just here. And when I've watered down the next bit and added some white, that's when we'll catch those final highlights. That's the inside just there. Gonna get, again, it's creeping up my brush quite a bit there with the water, so we are going to just clean that off and then go again. So the face, again, that forehead is in direct light. So we're going to apply that to quite a lot of the forehead. And the bridge of the nose. And a little bit on the top lip. This is where the light's coming in. We want it across the left temple, where the light source is stronger. Tips of the ears. Just beneath the temple, on the top of the cheekbone. And then we definitely want to catch pretty much the entirety of the cheekbone. Same again on the other side. Cheekbone and the top lip. Just trying to be super careful not to paint in anywhere that is already shaded nicely and not where we want it, or any of those darker areas that we did. So hopefully, what you should see now is a bit more definition to the face and to those arms. The eyes should now be pointing in the same direction. But I am going to go a little bit further. I'm going to take some of our Vallejo white. I'm going to decant it into... No, in fact, actually, I'm going to decant some of this into the next area here. Thank you very much, Dragon Skull. One drop. And that was probably too much. But we've still got some of our previous tone here. And because we haven't had to do any mixing yet, it's not too bad. Oh, no, we could be okay. So, let's really water this down again, just to be safe. Because this needs to be thin now. This is a glaze. These are our three tones. So we had the base, we've had the highlight, but actually we're going to go in with another glaze now for the light direction. This once more is the Artificer brush, so I don't need to go super thin. It's nice and thin already with the water, so I'm going to make sure that my brush is nice and pointy because this brush is starting to fall apart, I think. Now, I'm going to find the direction of light for the head. That's closer towards the left side of the forehead. I'm going to highlight that area. Tip of the nose, more to one side, the same side as the light. Come across the top of that brow ever so slightly. The tip of that ear on that side as well. Very top of the cheekbone up near that temple. I'm coming across that entire eyebrow almost with a very thin layer. I'm going to hit the top of the arm on the tops of the muscles. Pull that one down towards the elbow because it's got this lovely twist on it. And same again there on the forearm. On the other arm, we're going to grab that side of the bicep, top of that one there, and we're going to grab this entire line where we can just see this really nice directional area. Tidy up anywhere that maybe has thinned out as it's drying. And then our skin tone should be done. So let's see if we can show you the face. We've got it shadowed on this side, with it lighter on this side. See those eyes poking through, and from the top you should hopefully see the highlights on that skin for the arms as well. Like so. Next on the list, I'm going to leave the hair where it is for now because I don't think I overly need to touch it, but let's look at those gloves, the lovely, lovely watch. Does it show you what colour Chris's watch is? Just black. Okay. Okay. It's just his legs. He's all leg. Let's bring him back over here. Right. So I can sort of go rogue on the watch. So let's just do a little bit of silver. Got a plate mail metal here. It's not bad. It's been 1 hour and 50 so far. It's quicker than Barry. But that red needed that orange on Barry, so... Oh, we've missed the fingers! Oh! Luckily, I've got the flesh tones right here. Oh, glad we caught that. So, let's grab these fingers while we're here. And again, the goggles help a lot with the fingers. So, because I don't like to use washes, I am quite literally painting each one individually. This is still an artificer brush. I also really like the Insane Detail from the Army Painter. It's very good for stuff like this. A little bit over on that one, but we can paint the gun back in black, so it's not a problem. Same with the gloves. Just trying my best to get all of those ones that we've missed. Okay. Some sneaky bits around here, Chris. Right. So that's those bits there. We're going to wait for that bit to dry. Let's grab. I'm going to put a yellow into those stars on the Stars emblem. I found that Barry's ones were quite distorted, but Chris's look really good. So I don't know if I just got a bad cast for that particular area, or trying to do things that small was hard for them to do. But let's put our Stars badges in there. And I guess we grab our Orc Grey again, and we try and paint in the other parts of the gloves and the straps and the watch, the back line on the tack vest where we put the black line back into it. Directionally it's coming from the left, so we're going to leave the bottom one just on the left. The watch strap can be almost solid. And we've got very thin, very small amounts of paint being used here. Just to make sure that we're being extra careful. We've got this lovely edge on a gauntlet kind of edge of a glove over here. Can probably apply it to some of the top edges as well. Just as some extra highlights. Tops of thumbs, tops of fingers, especially on those gloves. We really want to give it the direction that it deserves. I'm going to give the Beretta a grey line across the top edge because it's a black weapon and I don't really need to go that far with it. So that's where that's going to stay. Same with some of these pouches. They're just going to get a little bit of love from the grey. Not much. A few bits on the inside of that gun holding glove. I'm going to try and give the handle of the pistol a little love. And then we're going to go in and finish the fingers. So we're going to grab our mid-tone. Definitely want that top finger. Oh, they've got nails on him as well, actually. Didn't see them on Barry, but actually Chris has got them, so I'm going to do those in a white. Or at least a very watered down or very brightened version of what I've got there. That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to go now down to the next tone. I need to remix that because it's starting to separate, just to make sure we've got the same colour. That bit there, we're going to grab the knuckles. And we're going to grab those fingernails. So I'm going to lighten this down again to get the fingernails proper. Okay. Let's go again with the white. I'm going to put it into this bit over here, one drop. And I'm going to take a small, probably about the same one drop, and add that to that white. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. So, now I'm going to re-grab my art brush, which fell on the floor. Small dab for those fingernails. Whew. We're almost there, guys. So what I need to do now is put a little bit over on the trigger guard for the Beretta. So I'm just going to paint that black line back in. There we go. And then put in the separation between that finger and that thumb again. Is there anywhere else that I need to get? Otherwise, I think I'm done. So, let's have a look at Mr. Redfield. I will probably have to black the base again. Yeah, only because of where it's been in the mold. But we have Chris all painted up. I can't believe they actually have the details for those fingernails. Awesome. Very, very happy with that sculpt. Oh no, I haven't finished the stars badge. We're nearly there, guys. We're nearly there. Don't go anywhere yet. But wait, there's more. Let's grab. So I dry brushed Barry's on, but it was actually kind of messy. So why don't we grab a black and a grey, and we'll try it slightly differently. So, let's grab some black, way too much black. We've got some grey over there actually, I don't need to do anything. I'm going to take a tiny bit and mix it into that grey. Take a little bit more. What I'm after here is a slightly off black that is not quite what it is. I want it darker than the trousers, but not as solid as the boots or the straps. I think that will be about it right there. Very night sky looking. So, I will probably grab the artificer brush for this. And then we can paint in and around those stars. Actually, ever so slightly gone over onto this bit here. So, I'm going to come back in again. And I'm putting this on very thin, simply because if I make a mistake, I want to be able to tidy it up. Just like so. I am going to soak that up because that is a bit messy. Right. Let's dry it off, and then we'll go again. This is actually the hardest bit, I find. Trying to do it thin enough that it goes where I want it to go and behaves how I want it to behave, but not so thin that it just goes straight into those yellow holes where the stars are. I think that will have to do for now. So we now have his badge on his left shoulder. And now we're done. That's okay. 2 hours, just shy of one of the minis. I'm okay with that. Very happy with the result of the green. What I will do is I'll get a picture of him taken and I'll get that up on my Instagram. That might show you the eyes a bit better. There you go. One Chris Redfield. Painted. And done. So I'm going to call it there for the night. It's not bad for 10 o'clock. Guys, thank you so much for coming along. Just hanging out while we paint up Chris. We've got Rebecca and Jill left to go, so we've got the ladies to go. I'm not sure what day I'm going to do those on yet because I'm busy tomorrow night. And I'll probably be doing some dice stuff during the day if I can. Tomorrow, Thursday, we've got painting up the Monster Manual with Richard from Warrior Prince 3D. And possibly something on Friday night. I'm not too sure yet. But, guys, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you have a fantastic night, day, whatever time it is, wherever you are. May the dice gods be ever in your favor. Take it easy, guys.